I'm Tom Baker, this is Chasing Cars, and today we're looking at two of the best medium SUVs that you can buy. On my right, we have the reigning champ, the Volkswagen Tiguan, and on my left is the newcomer, Mazda's second generation CX-5, which is looking to edge out the VW and become the new top of the class. So, will German sensibility or Japanese modernity take the crown? Well, we've assembled two diesel all-wheel drive models today to find out. We've got the Tiguan Highline diesel here with all-wheel drive, 140 kilowatts of power and 400 newton meters of torque. And this is the top spec CX-5 Akera diesel, also with all-wheel drive, 129 kilowatts of power and 420 newton meters of torque. If you've been a subscriber for a while, you'll remember that the Volkswagen Tiguan's cabin is attractive, straightforward, and packed with technology. Even though it's fairly conservative to look at, everything in the Tiguan is where you'd expect, and impressively, every car gets this big 8-inch touchscreen, which is easy to use on its own. However, every car gets Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and mid and high grades of the VW get integrated satellite navigation as well. Plus, you can get a really cool digital driver's display up here called the Active Info Display, which takes out the traditional dials and replaces them with a really immersive screen in front of the driver, though it is part of a $2,000 optional safety package in this car. The seats are quite comfortable. They're leather in this Highline model. They have a decent range of adjustment for the driver, 10-way electric adjustment, but the passenger makes do with manual adjustment and no lumbar. However, they are heated, and material quality is generally good in this car. The steering wheel and the shifter feel really classy, and there's generally soft touch materials up here and on the doors, but there are one or two places where you can see that Volkswagen have cut some costs, like down here. However, some really clever solutions like extra storage in the roof, storage in the dash, and flockline door bins set the Tiguan apart as a premium choice. The CX-5's cabin is really striking if you go for this white and black two-tone colour scheme, and you'll definitely want to get a model with electric seat adjustment in order to achieve a really comfortable driving position in this car. Unlike the Tiguan, here in the CX-5 the passenger gets basic electric adjustment, but the driver gets a full 10-way adjustment scheme over here, and there's heated leather seats in this particular Akera trim. All cars get this 7-inch MZD Connect touchscreen up here, which is nice and easy to use. The software included is good enough, and that's a good thing because there's no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto available on the CX-5, but it's really easy to control it on the move through the rotary controller between the seats. Plus, the Bose stereo on high-spec cars sounds really good. Material quality has taken a massive step up in this CX-5, and there's now soft-touch materials in slightly more places than there are in the Volkswagen. However, there aren't quite as many storage options in this car, partially because there's no roof storage, as you get a standard sunroof in the Akera and also the GT model below, and the door bins lose the flock lining in favour of a cheaper rubber strip. For a 6-foot passenger, the Tiguan has plenty of room. For me, I've got heaps of headroom, lots of legroom, and also lots of toe room sitting behind myself here. I do have these seats pushed all the way back, and you can adjust that on a slider to either get lots of boot space or heaps of rear legroom. Here in the middle is a pretty good compromise between the two. The seats also recline, which is good for road trips, and there are some other clever features as well. So there are tray tables here, which are adjustable and have a tablet holder in them as well. There are air vents with an adjustable temperature, a fold-down armrest with a couple of cup holders in it, and there are flockline door bins too. It is tighter in the back of the Mazda than the Volkswagen, but unless your kids are ultra-tall basketball players, that's probably not going to be a deal-breaker. What is impressive is just how comfortable and plush the back seats are in the CX-5, and you can see for me at 6 foot that I've got good headroom, good legroom, and good toe room sitting behind myself. These seats don't slide forwards and backwards to give you more boot space, but they do recline a little bit, even though it's a bit fiddly to do on camera. However, you also get air vents back here, though you can't adjust the temperature. There are door bins, but the best feature is that you get a fold-down armrest here, 2 cup holders, a little tray, but also 2 powered USB ports to keep the kids nice and quiet on a long road trip. It was practicality that really helped the Volkswagen Tiguan win our medium SUV test last year. Fast forward to now, and it's still got a boot that is absolutely exceptional for the class. So, with those back seats pushed forward, there's a massive 615 litres of space available back here. If they're back, it's a little bit less than that, but it's still a good boot. The shape is great, nice and wide and square. There's virtually no load lip, so you can slide your bag straight in or out. There's 2 deep bins on either side for delicate items. There's a shopping bag hook, and one of our favourite features is the ability to simply fold the seats flat from a tab right here in the boot. Hiding behind the Mazda's electric tailgate is a boot which is a really good shape, and although it looks really large, it's a little bit smaller than that on the Volkswagen at 442 litres. However, you can still get quite a few suitcases back there, and there are some clever touches like a cargo cover that attaches to the tailgate itself to get itself nice up and out of the way. However, there aren't any shopping bag hooks, which is a silly omission by Mazda, but something we like is the fact that you can fold the back seats from a tab right here in the boot, like in the VW. So what will a Tiguan set you back? The range opens up at $32,000 for a base model trendline, which is still well equipped. Most people will be perfectly happy with a mid-spec comfort line. That comes in a few different engine combinations, but we like the 110 TDI diesel 4Motion, which is $42,990. This more powerful 140 TDI Highline diesel is the top of the range, that's $49,990, but with a few options, the car in front of you comes to just under $53,000. Compare that to the CX-5, which is a bit cheaper to buy at the entry level, starting under $29,000 for a max manual, though that's not as well equipped as a Tiguan at the base model point. There are some sweet spots in the CX-5 range, like the $42,000 Touring diesel or the $47,000 GT diesel, but to get advanced safety tech in full, you've got no choice but to go for the car before you, which is the top line Akera. In diesel form, it's $49,990, as you see it here with the paint included. You can actually get 5 engines with the Volkswagen Tiguan, and while there are some excellent petrol choices, diesels make the most sense in this kind of vehicle, and there are 2 on offer. We've got the higher powered 140 TDI, which makes 140 kilowatts and 400 Newton meters. It certainly feels strong, muscular, and the VW is the quickest car here. However, it's noisier and more agricultural than we expected, and it's definitely louder than the Mazda at every speed. However, it's a good match most of the time to the 7-speed double clutch auto. That can just be a little bit laggy off the line. However, the availability of the 7th gear means that the VW's economy is exceptional. We recorded less than 6 litres per 100 kilometres on the highway and about 7.5 litres per 100 kilometres in town, which is great. But the real surprise of the Volkswagen Tiguan is just how good the handling is. The steering weight is excellent, especially when you knock it up into sport mode, where it gains a good amount of heaviness. Plus, you can really feel the spirit of cars like the Golf GTI shining through in the Tiguan's chassis, and that's no surprise because Golf and Tiguan are very closely related. VW feels like it just wants you to push it harder and harder in the corners, and it stands up to that kind of treatment. This is a fun car to drive, but it's still nice and easy to drive around town, especially once you learn the quirks of the DSG gearbox. In addition, the ride quality is pretty good. The safety technologies are optional on most models as well. AEB is standard across the range, and those technologies work well. The active cruise and the lane keep assist are pretty good, but it's the 360-degree camera that is a really nice touch in the VW. As I said when the 2nd generation CX-5 came out, the diesel is the engine to go for if you can splash out the extra cash. The 2 petrols are okay for getting the job done, but step up to the diesel and the CX-5 feels properly refined. So it's a 2.2 litre twin turbo setup, and it's got 129 kilowatts of power and 420 Newton meters of torque. So compared to the VW, it's a little down on power, but quite a bit up on torque, and it feels like that. So the CX-5 feels nice and muscly, and it feels pretty quick, especially at higher speeds when you put your foot down. Plus, the 6-speed torque converter automatic is excellent. What's really surprising is how hushed and refined the CX-5 motoring experience is. There's not much engine noise, there's very little road noise, and wind noise is much more restrained than the car it replaces as well. However, the 2 do tend to diverge on things like fuel economy. Because we've only got 6 gears here, the CX-5 doesn't achieve quite the astounding result of the Volkswagen on the highway. So we got about 6.7 litres per 100 kilometres in the Mazda on the highway and about 8 litres per 100 kilometres in town. But the cars are also divergent in the way that they handle, and surprisingly, it's actually the Mazda which ends up feeling the most everyday and the most mainstream out of the 2. And that's because, like a lot of Mazdas, you've got to push them pretty hard before their chassis really come alive. which is a bit of a shame because day to day, the CX-5 feels like a great wagon for getting the job done. Nice, easy steering, good visibility, all the things that you would want in town, but it's not particularly fun. The ride quality on these 19-inch wheels is also a little bit choppy for our liking. However, the safety features work well. There's a decent set of safety features across the CX-5 range. However, some of the ones you'd really want are actually exclusive to this Akari flagship, which is a shame because we'd really prefer that radar cruise control, lane keep assist and the like were optional on the lower models as well, especially since those technologies work really well in the CX-5. So what we've got here are two highly competent mid-size SUVs. These cars sit right at the top of the class, and if you're in the market, you must drive both. But which is our pick? Well, at this top spec level, it's actually the Mazda, which has a level of refinement that makes sense at $50,000. But if you're after something entry level or mid-range, the Volkswagen takes the gong. The Tiguan range just has so much depth and talent. Every engine is good, as opposed to only the diesel in the Mazda, and the availability of safety tech at lower levels on the VW is so important to us. But you can't go wrong with either. These SUVs are a credit to their makers.